Alberigo have been sharing how to take your martial arts school to the next level. Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Allie.
Hello, Dwayne Brummett here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Morning, Allie. Nice to be with you, sir.
Hey, it's always good to be with you, Dwayne. So, and honestly, it's good to be with someone that is in the trenches like you and doing the same thing every day like me, you know, and having someone kind of going through it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like that I could talk to, and we've always been good for each other that way too, right? Like being able to bounce things back and forth.
Yeah, even before COVID, but especially during COVID,
Yeah.
and now, I mean, it's still continuing. Having, I don't know, I was quite appreciative, still am, of our relationship, being able to, like you said, bounce ideas back and forth, and
Yeah,
you know, those type of things. So
yeah, and you know what's funny? I don't know if you read, but I posted on our page, Martial Arts School Owner Talk, that I had a run-in with a parent. And first, before I even get into that, it's so deflating. Like I for school owners that are listening, I mean, some of them are probably pretty good at just blowing it off, but I am not. Like it's always been, and look, I've been doing this for 30 years and it will literally zap me of my energy. You know, my fiance and daughter will always say like, oh my God, I could see like you went from level 10 energy down to like a 1. I literally could pull the blanket over my head, turn the lights out and just watch TV because that's how depressed or deflated I get when things like that happen. And I know it's bound to happen, but it still affects me. But the good news is it only affects me for like a day and a half now, not like a month.
not a week.
Yeah, not a week, you know, like I'm able to get over it pretty quickly. So, but it's quite harsh, you know, and people don't realize what we go through.
No, I would agree with that. And today's topic is superior customer service and how we can make sure that we are delivering that to, you know, our clients and our customers. And so I think this is a perfect topic. What a way to start it off with, right? With the fact that you had someone that was not happy with their customer service.
Right.
Do you want to talk about it right now, or do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason why we're having this conversation is because we're like, hey, that's a good topic to share with others, and quite simply, you know, our topics a lot of times are things that we're going through in our lives, and we're like, hey, you had a struggle with this, we should do a call about it, you know, and that way our listeners are taking the journey with us and learning from our experience, or maybe, you know, they've had it themselves and they feel reassured that they're not alone. So anyway, long story short, I'll quickly give you a synopsis. So I have an amazing little girl, 7 years old, just training with me for 2 years. I had a dad who seemed to be an amazing guy, loved him. We always had great conversations. In fact, he sought me out, wanted his daughter to train with me, brought her specifically to me, and we've had a great relationship for 2 years. COVID hit during year 1, and the mom called me up, you know, with a very, she calls me condescending and you know, arrogant. But I feel like every time she called me, which is twice in 2 years, the only 2 times I've ever met her was on the phone. She's never once stepped foot into my school, never once saw what we did in person. And when she did call me the first time, it was about her husband not being allowed to sit in the lobby when classes were going on when we came back from COVID. Not my choice. Cuomo, our governor's rules, his mandates, you know, nothing to do with me. I have a beautiful lobby with empty chairs waiting for parents to sit in.
Right.
So I tried to explain that to her, and she was just not having it. Well, then we're going to pull our daughter out. I said, I'm really sad if that happens because I don't have control over this. I want you to sit, but I can't. Well, my husband's going to sit outside the window and watch. I said, why would he? We have 3 camera angles. You could sit in your car on Zoom with 3 amazing angles, literally like 40 foot away from where you would be sitting in the lobby, you'd be sitting in your car. Anyway, lo and behold, that kind of all went away. The kid continued to train for a year. And just recently she trained and came in. I wasn't there. My daughter was there and she taught with my other instructor. And then the mom called me up livid about her daughter training with someone who did not have a mask on their face. And I'm assuming like, wow, we paired her off with someone without a mask and her daughter has a mask. Lo and behold, I find out that the father sent her without a mask. And she's mad at me, the mom. And I'm like, I didn't have anything to do with it. And I said, I'll do my best to make sure she's always paired off with someone with a mask. and or I'll separate her so she could do something different if we don't have anyone with a mask in the class. And she wasn't happy with that. And I said, ma'am, whatever I could do, I will do for you. If you want to cancel your agreement, if you want to put it on hold and then come back into it 2 months later, whatever's good for you, I'll do for you. Anyway, after we're all said and done, she writes this scathing review about us, like literally that, and makes all these stories up that, we have no air conditioning in our school. We don't have a place for parents to sit. And I'm like, so I responded. Long story short, I responded to her nicely. I wrote a few different responses and kept and waited before I sent it out. And then, yeah, exactly. Because, you're in the heat of the moment, right? And you get angry. So I also posted it on our martial arts school owner talk page and got a whole bunch of people's opinions. And then I woke up and I kind of took a whole different approach and just said, listen, I want to do the right thing and yada, yada, yada. And she then fires back with a text message that I sent to her husband saying that your wife just wrote this terrible review about us. And I wrote to you and said, I do whatever you want. So she goes, you see, this is the kind of man he's trying to get my husband to change my honest review of his school. And in the start of her review, she says, my husband was super happy. My daughter was super happy. My daughter learned a lot in the program, but I did not like it. So I'm like, and she's kind of contradicting herself. So,
oh yeah.
Anyway, long story short, it bothered me for 2 days, and I'm writing emails, and it consumed a lot of my thought and energy, which it probably shouldn't have. I should have just wrote a quick response and been done. But I always have found, and maybe we get your opinion on this, is that if you don't respond to a nasty review, even nicely or with some factual information, people will believe it's true. But if you put some information there and you at least give the reader a chance to read both sides, it's better for the school owner. What do you think on that?
I don't know in all cases that's true. And what I mean by that is I know, this was 3 months ago, 2 months ago, whatever it was, when I got COVID, and then also my head instructor, and we had to close for it was only a week and 1 day.
Right.
There was a grandma that posted, a review on our Facebook page, and that she was absolutely pissed that, we were there without masks and all this other stuff. But the problem with that was twofold. One, her grandson did wear a mask.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because anybody that wants to wear one can wear one.
Yeah.
But two, I saw her sitting in the lobby without a mask. She didn't even have a mask on.
Right.
But I wasn't going to put that online and have an argument with her.
Right.
They just didn't come back. I didn't put anything on there. I don't care. So on that one, I didn't even write anything. Mm-hmm. With regards to yours, I don't know. I kind of like to talk face to face or over the phone.
Right.
With those type of things. Now, I understand that some people are you can't do that with, because they won't have a logical discussion with you.
Right.
Then yeah, I do think that writing something like an email and then an additional post that maybe even the post says part of what the email says, but for the other readers it tells them that you are look, I tried giving you a call, you wouldn't answer my call or return it, so I sent. So please refer to the email with regards to your issues. I do believe that I tried to solve all of them. I don't think you need to write it all out on the response. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And this was based off of a conversation on the telephone. So there was no other step other than meeting in person, which she refused to do. And it's quite obvious. Listen, I know that, sometimes I'm not the favorite flavor of ice cream. I'm a very powerful personality. I talk with confidence. I'm very absolute when it comes to knowing what I want and what I believe. But I try to do my best to make sure that everyone is feeling that they're being heard. So she just was not having it, you know what I mean? And that way, and then the review, she posted the review after I thought we had, hey, listen, Dwayne, whatever you want, if you want to cancel your agreement, just let me know, whatever you choose, right? It's up to you. I want you to be happy. That's how it was left off. Then the scathing review came. And then there was a lot of, she said that we didn't have good COVID protocol, that we didn't follow safety. We were the heaviest as far as, in fact, in my area, people would come to me as school owners and say, Allie, what are you doing? So we were parents would come to me and say, your school is so safe. It's the safest activity my kids do.
Right.
Right. So I believe there were a lot of lies, and I think that sometimes we just have to address them in a kind way, a non-confrontational way, like meet a fact with a non-fact, right? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Give me just a second. I apologize.
That's okay.
My wife needs to borrow my car, and that's why I got up, because I put the keys outside of my office door
Okay.
and then shut the door. So I had to text her and say, hey, they're sitting outside my office door.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, no, I think, responding in that way, saying, we did follow protocol. We do have other school owners that actually refer to us. I think, writing all of that is totally fine.
Right.
But getting way deep into explanations on those posts, I don't know that necessarily needs to happen.
Yeah, and by the way, did you read the post of the original one that I was going to send out?
Yeah.
So that I didn't send that one, but I sent one almost as long, but it definitely wasn't the same vein of topic. Like, it was less tit for tat, less, I'm going to show you what we did and what you're saying you did is a lie. Like, I was much more compassionate, and I understand, trust me. I mean, the only two issues we've ever had, this woman and I, are COVID related, that things that are beyond my control. And you know what I find interesting is that in this day and age, people think it's just okay to destroy a business reputation. And what they're not thinking, though, when they do this, is that there are multiple people that they're hurting. They're not just hurting me, they're hurting the students. And if they hurt me enough and my business goes out of business, then they hurt all the people. They hurt the employees, they hurt the families of the people they're talking about. And the viciousness is just, there's such a disconnect with typing something viciously on a computer about somebody. And I found myself almost wanting to review products and say something negatively about something that I had an unhappy service about, and I stopped because I didn't want to do what I'm saying, and there was much more of a deeper effect to it. So it's kind of sad that we have to deal with this stuff nowadays.
Yeah. So I guess the thing is, what can you learn from that, and how do you prevent it from happening? Because that's really true superior customer service, right? So how can I pre-frame my potential and also, new clients in a way that they understand how things are going to run, so that they're not getting upset. But you can only do what you can do, because I'm sure what you did was you did all of those things with the father who was bringing the daughter in,
right? But
the mom herself was not getting that information, or chose to not look at that information. And there's nothing you can do about that. I don't know if you've updated your agreements, but we've updated all of our agreements with regards to COVID and, what our expectations are based upon the CDC. And now whether they read it or not, that's not the problem.
Right.
But they have to sign it.
I'll tell you one thing that gave me years and years and years ago. We're talking probably 15 years ago. I had this dad who was this miserable dude, and he'd always bring the kid. He was the one bringing him, but he always had a snide remark. He literally would antagonize me by bumping me and stuff like that with his shoulder, like to try to walk straight towards me, and I would move out of the way. Like, he was very aggressive towards me. And then finally at one point I freaked out. I'm like, first of all, it looks like you want to fight with me. If you want, we can take our shoes off and go on the mat, if that's what you want to do. I said, but I don't know what your problem is, but I'm tired of it. It's been going on for way too long. So I'm going to give you a refund. And I wrote him a check and send him and his kid off, which his kid was awesome. Now, here's the interesting learning thing that I got out of it. About 2 hours later, the mother comes walking through the door, who I loved. And she said to me, she sat me down and she says, you do realize that he's only 50% of the parenting equation, right? She goes, yeah, he's a jerk at times. He's got an attitude. I don't know what his problem is, but I can't control him. And my kid is going to suffer because he's a jerk. So you have to understand that I like you, you like me, you like my kid. Now, just because he's a jerk, you shouldn't punish the child. I don't remember if I let him come back and then eventually they quit. But at the same time, I did hear what she had to say. So like in this particular case, I only dealt with the father and the daughter, and I really liked the guy. Like, we would chat, and it was a great relationship, I thought. And I feel bad because I do think that the guy would rather have kept his daughter in our program, and the mother just won. She probably gave him more hell for being on my side than not. And he just threw his hands up and said, okay, never mind. Right. But anyway, customer service to me, I have a whole list of 20 things, but let me just throw like one or two out and then maybe you could add a few on. So like the number one thing I think about stellar customer service is to learn about the customer, right? To learn what they look for, what they want, who they are as a person, and really understand that first, right? Because until we do, we're only fitting them into our mold of what we think, right? And we probably think much differently than they do. So to really know the client. So what are your thoughts on that? And how could we go about really putting together something to know them?
Well, I think that also kind of goes all the way back to, who's your ideal customer and who do you want walking through your door and who are you marketing to? Because I would say that's, 80% of the battle. If you're bringing in the right people into your studio, it's not going to take very long to connect with them and understand who they are and what they want.
Right.
So I think that's the first step to connect with them is, one, you need to know who your ideal customer is. And if you've never gone through that exercise before and really decided who they are, you need to do that. You need to come up with who your ideal customer is. And from the standpoint of monetarily, morally, and just all of those things need to be taken into consideration. So, and then also your ideal customer could be, you only really want to work with somebody that's 7 to, because, will I accept 3 and 4 year olds? Yeah. Do I advertise for 3 and 4 year olds? No, because
okay.
I don't want 3 and 4 year olds, but
right.
I have a 3 and 4 year old class just because it's something that some people do want.
Right.
5 and 6 year olds. Do I want them? No. But do I have them? Yes. And I don't mean that I don't want them, but I have a 5 and 6 year old program.
Right.
To me, my sweet spot ages for me, my ideal customer is anywhere from 7 to 11, 12-year-olds maybe, but 7 to 11, just because the way that our program is structured. And by the time they reach certain ranks, also, the leadership, and by certain ages, they'll be hitting the opportunity for leadership, and then our storm team, and then
right.
becoming an instructor in training, and then becoming an instructor. Like I kind of backward engineered that to fit the model that I've created, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. So I guess, like, for example,
and I know this is probably not even where you were wanting to go, but
no. You know what? I think that's what's great about our conversations, because, like, you and I drift into other things at times that are not off topic, but just an opinion on the topic, and it really creates a lot of thought. Like, I'm thinking in my head, like, so if I owned a vegan restaurant, I could. And I go to a very, very good vegan restaurant, and I often wonder, it's always packed, and I often wonder how many people are actually vegan, but how many people are actually interested in eating a vegan meal, right? So for them, I guess they have a very wide net that they could fish from, right? But let's say it was, a militant vegan restaurant where if you ate meat, you weren't allowed through the door because you're contributing to, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So I love what you said about the ideal client and finding people that fit the sweet spot of what we specialize in, right?
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and again, I'm not sure that's, necessarily where you wanted to go, but I do think in order to, cut a lot of headaches out of the way, is you don't want the wide net of bringing everybody into your school. Right. You want to know who you want to work with from the get-go. Or you can have a wide net, but when they get into your school, then you're able to narrow down to make sure they're the ideal client, right? So that, and then of course you want to cast a big net and capture as many leads as possible. Then they come through the door. And by the way, in my 3-month program, I have a whole entire month of communicating our value system and what we do and the yearly commitment and being a committed parent. However, I just had a parent that just signed their daughter up yesterday, and I said, or said she wanted to sign up. I sent them the contract digitally, and then she said, "Oh, I didn't realize this was a commitment." And even in the email, I said, "I'm going to send the contract out for the 12-month commitment." And she said, "Well, how do we cancel?" And I said, "Well, we don't. That's why it's a commitment. Unless it's, medical or financial difficulty or something's going on, you could just come to me. But we want people to be committed for at least 12 months at minimum. I mean, listen, you want me to work hard at teaching your kid this art that it took me 53 years to learn.
you can't give me a year of commitment. You know, so I get that. Not everyone is our ideal client, and we want to kind of fish that out as we're going, right? But knowing the customer, I think, is important. Meaning, like, what kind of parent are they? Like, what if the kid doesn't want to go? Like, I had another lady say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to come in for a trial class. I can't get my 6-year-old out of the house. He's got anxiety, and I don't want to push him." And I'm like, "Well, that's why he's got anxiety. You got to encourage him to come out so that we could help you with the problem." But then in my head, I'm going, why am I digging myself in to try to deal with this crap when I could probably just get, and I don't want to say this, but a kid who probably has less issues and less work to join my school. But I'm willing to do that to help people. So you want to know your client, right? And that's so important. What do they do for a living? Maybe they're an advertising executive or a chief. I never knew this. One time I had a parent and the student and said, "I didn't know you wanted to act." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing a lot of stuff." He goes, "Oh, you like soap operas?" I'm like, "Not really. I don't want." He goes, "Well, I am the head casting director for a Guiding Light, the TV show. Can I just throw your resume out? I'll get you on the show." That easy, because I didn't know him, but he then heard. So we never know what we're sitting on either. So we want to know our parents. We want to know their clientele, what they do for a living, what their choices are, et cetera, so that we could kind of really work with them. Makes sense.
Yeah, and we do what we call a discovery session. We use the Spark forms for that, and it's just a bunch of questions that I ask to get feedback on, you know, what they're looking for out of the program, who their child is, why they initially wanted to enroll their child into martial arts, and just a bunch of other questions. But that helps me kind of understand one, their pain points,
right?
But then two, it gives me a gauge on where they're at. And it's kind of like you hear people say, when you want to go somewhere, what's the first thing that you got to decide? And most people say, well, you got to decide where you're going, right?
Right.
No, actually, you got to decide where you're at first.
Right. True. Right. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So, that's what I'm saying is we've got to find out where our student and our parent, because we're not just dealing with the student, especially if it's a kid.
Right.
We're not just dealing with the student, we're also dealing with the parent. And so that's twofold. We got to find out where the student is at and where the parent is at. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is ask, the right questions in order to find that.
I love it. That's a great one, a questionnaire. And by the way, ask them what the kids like: dinosaurs, horses, unicorns. I know that sounds silly, but then you're like, hey, Johnny, you're going to work as ferocious as a dinosaur. You're going to be as fast as a unicorn to the little girl.
Well, and even their favorite colors. And if they have a pet, that should be in that questionnaire, and just say, part of our discovery session is, finding out a little bit more about Johnny, what his favorite color is, or if you have a pet, what type of pet and their name, just some of those small little things, because then, I don't have a dog, but if I did, I could say, oh, you have a, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a dog. You have a German Shepherd. I got a German Shepherd too. And I understand, and I wouldn't say this. I wouldn't say, I understand your German Shepherd's name is Sparky, but I would just say, hey, what is your dog's name?
Right.
I don't even them to tell me. And even though it was already in the questionnaire, but and then we also, in that discovery session, we put in there, how many siblings that they have as well. Well, part of that is because I want to make connection to, to knowing the child and the family. But the other part is I want to know if they have other children that could potentially do, the program with them.
Right. And you know what? I think that's good, though, that you have a parent that is interested in getting back in shape. You have your health coaching business that you also could work with people. They don't have to join in your school as a martial artist, but if you get to know the people better, there's such a vast area of where you could take it, right? Like I just recently had a parent say to me, hey, my daughter's going away to college this year and she's going to be going to the city. Do you do any self-defense courses, or could she join for a month or two just to get some basic understanding? So it's always good to poll or question your clientele. That leads me to number 2, which is recognizing your industry, what turns people off, and learn how to nip that in the bud. So like if you get to know people more and you know that they don't like something, or they're looking for something in your school, and you're not giving it to them, it's super important for them to be able to communicate that with you so that we could give them a better understanding.
Yeah. So like what what's a for instance would you say that turns people off, maybe, or maybe it's a misconception?
Yeah, well, I think anyway, we should be good at this already. Like, for example, someone calls and says, "Hey, hey," and I've made this mistake and learned from it. They're like, I got them on the phone. I'm talking to them about the class, and they say, "Hey, do you like teach Taekwondo?" And I'll go, "Yes, I do." And they go, "Oh, that sucks. I hate Taekwondo." Right. So I would say, now, learning from my mistake, do you like Taekwondo? And if they said yes, and I go, well, we don't actually teach Taekwondo, but we do things very similar, the kicking and the blocking and the kata and this and that. Or if they said I hated it, I go, well, we don't do anything like Taekwondo at all. And knowing Taekwondo, I'd tell them what we do that's different than Taekwondo. Right. So that's one thing, knowing what turns people off by asking and feeling them out. But we kind of know, like if there are certain things that we constantly hear continuously in our program that maybe people say that we do, or they've heard from other schools, like, oh, they're a belt factory, or the school down the road, doesn't teach weapons, or, so I'll always take the things that I know are special about my school, and I'll make sure that I talk about those things that I know other schools don't do. Like, for example, we don't charge for belt testing. So I'll say a lot of other schools do. Some of them don't, but the majority of them charge for belt testing. We include it all in our price all the way up to black belt. So you'll never have to pay for a stripe, for a belt, for a certificate. It's all fully included. And that normally costs you $200 extra a year at most schools. So I kind of nip it in the bud because I know certain things that I should be talking about. Does that make sense?
Perfectly. And then I even years ago came up with a, oh man, it's a report.
Right.
I can't even think of the name now of the report. Why can't I think of it? Oh, questions to ask a martial arts school before joining.
Oh, right.
Or the 7 questions to ask a martial arts school before joining. And when I have people, and I haven't had this in quite a long time, but when I would have people say, yeah, well, we're going to check out other schools, and I would just say, great, I think you should. Because the worst thing you can do is get your child, your most precious gift, into the wrong school.
Right.
And I would have parents look at me like, wow. And I'll say, in fact, let me go on, because this would usually happen during the enrollment conference. So I would go over to the office and say, you know what, I actually have a report that you're going to want to read, because there's 7 important questions that you're going to want to ask. And I can tell you what they are right now, but you ain't going to remember all 7.
Yeah.
So I go and I get that report and I bring it back to them. And I would say 9 times out of 10, those people always came back and signed up with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of it is, like you're talking about, are there any hidden fees?
Right.
I call them hidden fees, because usually they're not talked about up front.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'd put a negative spin on what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a little distracted because I'm watching us on Facebook, and then it said video interrupted, but it came right back. So, sometimes it kicks us off for some strange reason. So I love that too, though, that you're almost like turning your marketing against the competitors, because you're saying, hey, and like with me, that we call that value stacking, right? Like, so in my school, I go, hey, yeah, other schools don't, they might do other things, but this is what we give that's above and beyond. Sticker rewards for the kids, perfect attendance for the kids, a whole entire program, and I go through all these different things. And
even now with the app through Spark and your online video-based curriculum, it used to be, and I've told people, I used to have DVDs that were for sale.
Right.
And now that's all included. Like, you don't, the problem with a DVD is you give it to a kid, it's going to get scratched in 3 weeks if they're using it.
And even if you don't have a DVD player anymore. Yeah,
well, but what I'm saying is that it used to be the kids would scratch it and the parents would go, I'm not going to go spend $40 on that again.
Right, exactly.
But
the app, you mentioned that. Our app is through Spark. And, I had a guy the other day said, he was calling me up about a website design. He said, I know you're a fan of Spark. Don't ask me about my software. I'm like, I know they sponsor you. So I'm like, okay, don't worry. You could use a crappy software if you want.
No, but here's the deal. We talked about them before they ever became a sponsor.
I know. That's the truth, though, because we were people who are using it and benefiting from it. So we would probably talk about, I hope they're not listening, but we'd probably still continue to talk about it long after they sponsored us, because this is what we do.
I'm smitten by Spark. Let's just put it that way.
Exactly. I once said to them jokingly, and I think they put it in an ad, I said, if if I was single, I'd be dating Spark. That's how much I loved it, and how much time I spend with it, right?
Yeah.
So another thing too that I wanted to add to this was, and there's 20, I guarantee we're not going to get through hard because we're halfway through our podcast, but we wanted, number 2 was, I had said before, was recognize in your industry what turns people off. You should know that by knowing your competition, right? And then learn how to nip it in the bud and spin it to your advantage, which you do when people say, hey, I want to look around, and you have your 7 steps to finding a good school, right? Which value stacks what you do that they don't do, which is amazing. And value stacking is so important. What that means to the listener is, like, we don't realize until we think about it all the things that we give our clients that are included. We just say, hey, it's $150 a month in tuition. But do you give them a uniform? Yes. Do you give them weapon training? Yes. That's, other schools may not do that. Do they learn grappling? They might have to pay an additional cost for that. Like in Tiger Schulman by us, they charge a la carte for many different programs. If you want to learn weapons, it's a different program. If you want to learn, other things like self-defense, it's a different program, right? So you value stack that stuff. So the third thing is gathering feedback whenever necessary, like always trying to ask people for their opinion on what they think about your school. Like I often ask clients of mine to poll their people and say, in 100 words or less, tell me what your vision of our school is. Explain it to me in 100 words. Like, are we and then you give them an example, a family-based martial art? Are we this and that? And then they find out about themselves. Like one of my guys, and him, Rick Kellerman, he's often on the calls, and a friend of mine, and he did that with his clients, and he didn't realize how many of them said we're a family, we're like-minded people working together. We're a clan, like that stuff. And he didn't really think about that in his marketing. He was just teaching Kung Fu, and he didn't realize that how much that his school had become a family unit and a model on that. So we need to gather feedback whenever necessary.
You make sure you let him know that he shouldn't use the word clan in his advertising. I'm just saying.
I understand that too, but in ours we have that. I'm careful of that, but we're a
ninjutsu. It's a clan. I mean,
right, a ninja clan, also known as a Khan, with Khan, Kan, as family. But I've been very careful about that, because isn't it a stupid world that we live in where we have to be so careful about everything? Like, like I often will say something that's totally normal, but then go to myself, oh my God, is there anyone in the room that word may have offended? That, and the word is just a word, but the way people spin everything, everyone's offended about something these days. And it's so hard to even write on social media because people perceive it differently because you use a word or do this or that. But anyway, understanding, gathering feedback. And number 3, understanding this one is 4, understanding what a true customer's value is. So you work hard for them. So we've done this before, you and I, like, the value is not $140 a month times 12.
The student value, yeah.
The student value is the whole tuition for the year, plus if they stay normally for 2 years, so it's double, plus if they refer a friend and they buy retail and they come to a special event. So sometimes we don't realize how valuable those clients are. Like I have a few clients, I swear to God, I don't understand it, but they're paying $500, $600 a month for a family to train. I'm going like, that's a Model 3 Tesla payment, or that's a condo in one of the Floridas or Carolinas, right? Like that you could buy. So they're giving up a portion of their livelihood for us. So we have to always remember that we have to be very thankful for that and always express that to our clientele as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, if somebody wants to, if you don't know how to calculate student value, you can go to schoolownertalk.com. We do have a report on there. It's our martial arts business manifesto. You can download it there, and it will go over the student value with you, among a bunch of other things. But
that was actually probably the most, the thing that people liked the most was student value and what your time is worth, right? In that.
Well, that and your space too, like how many, the dimensions of your floor, how many people you actually can have on the floor, and
right.
And how that equates to your monetary value in your school.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone, that's what people are like, wow, I never thought of it that way. So, so the next one, and I probably think is the most important out of all 20 of these, although that they're really good, is learn how to exceed customers' expectations. Like, what do they expect from you? What do you think about that?
Well, and that's where like Grandmaster Hafner would always talk about, and I love this word. He would always say, you know, do things that will allow you to be remarkable.
Right.
Everything that you do in your business, just be remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
You just think of that word remarkable. You know, what does that mean? That just means that people are going to, you know, talk about you.
Right.
That it, like what you're talking about, that it exceeded their expectations
Mm-hmm.
because you did X, Y, or Z, or A, B, and C.
Right.
Now, this is easy to do, but hard. This is easy to do when someone's sick and you actually take time to write them a get well card and send it off in the mail to them. I say that's easy because it's something that's right in your face.
Right.
There's a problem going on, and then you're able to, you know, send that off. But how often do we get that information and then don't follow through with that?
Yeah.
Right. So I think with what you're talking about, it's setting yourself up with success and looking at your business at every stage of the business.
Right.
Meaning from, you know, they're a trial student
Mm-hmm.
to becoming a student, to their first belt, their second belt, their third. What can you do to exceed their expectations all the way up to black belt and beyond?
Yeah.
And we've done a call similar to this years ago. And when we got into some nitty gritty with it, but and I forget what the call was called, but we gave some actionable things with regards to that. And all I told the listeners was, I know all this information we gave you could be overwhelming, and you're looking at it going, oh my gosh, I got to put like a 10-year system together.
Right.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
But all you do is you take it with the set of white belts that you have right now.
Yeah.
And you follow those white belts for the next 10 years, and you just write it as you go. And so everybody else now after these set of white belts that are starting are going to get that information. It's not that you want to neglect the people that you already have, but
Right.
You're only one person, and you can't write the whole thing and like make it good.
Mm-hmm.
For 10 years right now, but you can if you start right now, and you're going to be open for 10 years at least, right? Or many more. So you might as well take that next 10 years and just slowly write that. So I just wanted to throw that out.
That's awesome. And it actually leads into the next thing, but quickly though, so we have a process when we do black belts, and they're black belt candidates. They have to go through a 6-month training course, and then they test for their black belt. So I did exactly what you did, and I put an automation together for those black belt candidates. And so the typical process would be we have a meeting with them, and I try to remember everything I'm supposed to say, and rah, 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 and we all disperse, right? But years ago, I knew that I was always forgetting things and always missing things and so on. So I did an automation through Spark where once they're up for their black belt, they get a series of letters. And in the letters, it's each step. They then take a questionnaire. They sign things. They get downloads and all this stuff. And my guy, Ryan, he's like, well, we have to have a meeting. I go, Ryan, this entire process that they've been in has been the meeting. But we're still doing a meeting on Friday. But they've gone through every step, and the ones that are in there already filled out the forms. They already paid their black belt fee. They already filled out the questionnaire, what they want written on their belt. I mean, it was all laid out where it was just a push of a button, put Dwayne in the process and tag him with a black belt candidate. And then boom, you're in it. And I'm not going to forget because it's there. Right. And I normally would forget, even though like, dude, I forget why I went in the kitchen, and, I'm like in there going, like, but I forget sometimes I'm on email and I pull up another site to do something that was triggered off the email, and I can't remember why I was on the site now. So like,
you know what that's called, right? When you go into no. When you go in the other room and forgot what you went in there for, right? That means you believe in the hereafter, right? You walk in the room and you go, what was I hereafter?
Yeah, exactly. My mom is 84 years old. The other day I FaceTime her and she's walking around the house. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? She goes, I'm looking for something. So I'm just talking to her as she's looking. And I'm like, what are you looking for? Like 10 minutes into her walking around the house. She goes, I don't know. I'm like, well,
but I'm going to keep walking until I remember.
Yeah. So she figured she'd just keep on walking until remember. But if I said to her, if you don't know what you're looking for, how are you going to remember what you're looking for? Like it's a vicious process. So, but I believe that we can automate a lot of those things. And, but I have to say, here's one thing that, and you know this, Dwayne, like over the last 2.5 years, 3 years, I've been remotivated to be the best teacher and run my school. And I've really focused less on alternate businesses and more on my school. And I know every single student's name. I know the parents by name. You know, years ago, I would have people training me for a year and go, what's your name, buddy? You know, now I know everybody and everything they want to accomplish. I talk to every parent and I do it not because it's a good thing to do, which it is, but I do it because I'm genuinely interested. And I really feel a real deep connection to every single student. And that's why, too, I'm very personally upset when someone quits or they get angry, because I really feel connected to them and I want them to benefit it. But that kind of mentality is what has stellar customer service written all over it, right? You got to really know what you're doing. I have a trophy company. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we're a personality-driven business. I mean, any way you look at it, we can systemize things, and we should. Yeah. But we can put our personality into videos and somewhat into text, but it doesn't replace the human interaction that needs to happen. And I can attest to this where, you know, I hired a program director, and she with Spark, I was almost hesitant to not do it. Mm-hmm. Just because there's so much that I can do with Spark that I almost don't need somebody at the front desk. Right. Well, I decided to go ahead and do it because I wanted to take myself out of the picture, right? I didn't want to have to be the one that's always there. And, well, lo and behold, she's doing the enrollment conferences. And, you know, not only is she signing people up, she's overcoming the objections, if there are any. She's doing add-ons, meaning she's selling a second uniform. Like last night, she sold the second uniform because it's a split family and each one of them wanted to have a uniform at the house. And she talks to parents going, hey, you know what, you ought to, you know, your son's doing this. Why don't you do it with him? It's a great connection. I do it with my kids. I have parents that are joining their kids because she's talking about it. Right. The emotional side of that can't happen through the video, can't happen through the text as effectively as the face-to-face one-on-one. Of course. And you know what? No one, like, I'll give you an example. I ordered trophies from my trophy company for perfect attendance that we give out. And they made a mistake. So I called them up, and the woman who's one of the main people there, total attitude, like, you know, like it was my fault that they made the wrong trophy. And I felt like I've been dealing with them for 30 years. Like I spend $7,000 on my tournament alone. But I kind of felt like, holy crow, like why am I being treated like I'm bothering her? Like, I understand maybe she was in a bad mood or they're having a hard time, but that's more reason to treat me better because I'm the one spending money and I'm understanding, oh, you mail me the wrong ones, I'll keep them because I'll use them later, you know, that kind of thing. But I felt like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? Like, so we have to understand that everyone has feelings. Everyone wants to be connected. Every parent doesn't care about what you do for everyone, although they like that. They only really care about what you're doing for their child because they didn't sign everyone up. They signed their child up to get the benefits. And we don't do that. If we don't understand that, then there's no sense in trying to communicate, right? We have to be connected to them. Yeah. And it's all about them. You're right. I mean, they want to. So in a conversation, we need to make sure that we're asking the questions and that we're listening. Right. And there is not a parent that doesn't want to talk about their kids, and most, you know, so they could care less about, I know this is the cliche, right? That people could care less about how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. But that is absolutely true. And I think one of the best things that we can do as school owners is become really good listeners. Right. And then action takers based upon the information that we just listened to. Right. That's the second piece. Just don't hear what they said, but really listen and put to action what they're telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, that leads into the next one too. Like when you see them,
you would think I have that list in front of me, and I don't.
You don't. It really, but you're like on the money. We must have done this before. But the next thing, and it leads totally into knowing who they are, is to greet your customers. And I want to phrase this because it used to be greet your customers as if they were the president of the United States, and then I write or some other important person on your list. So nowadays it seems like we don't treat people of authority with respect, or people, it seems like if someone is on a higher level of fame, fortune, whatever, people tend to want to trash them these days, right? So I think you have to be very careful with becoming or getting put on a pedestal, because that will only encourage people to knock you off of it, right? And then when I moved my school to I condensed the 2 schools down, and people saw that I was no longer in my building after 30 years, I got 3 or 4 hate mails anonymously going like, I'm really glad you went out of business, that kind of thing. You even had someone who post on our page, why would I listen to Ali when he closed his school? Like, not knowing that I've been there for 30 years and whatever went on. So again, we have to make sure that our customers know that they're the most important thing to us, or person to us. And we also have to make sure that they understand, like, not only is their kid important, but they're important. And we want to develop some sort of rapport, because if we have rapport, people are less likely to side with the negative. That parent in the lobby, I can't believe it. You see what he just did? And then they go, no, he was great. My kid went through something similar, and man, they were right. They held him back, and so you have to make sure that you develop that relationship, but it's always starts with the greeting and, that personal greeting, that I know that people were fearful of me just because I'm a Shihan or whatever, and I'm standoffish. So I try to go out of my way to be, more friendlier and less Shihan-like, so that people feel connected to me, if that makes sense.
It perfectly does. I mean, I've never had an ego out on the floor talking to a parent, any of that. And I think that you've often said that, martial arts, martial arts school owners are sometimes hard to deal with because they have egos, and I don't know that I've ever had that problem. I will stand up for what I believe in, and I have kicked people out of the studio,
right?
But I just, from the onset, it's just, I really try to, listen to what they have to say and learn what I can help them with. And if there's something I can't, I apologize for it and say, I'm not equipped to help you in that area. I wish I could, but I'm just, I'm not equipped. And I learned that phrase from Melody Schumann, when she had said that, what you want to tell the parent, if there's a child that you're literally not able to help and you don't want in your school because you can't help them,
right?
You just tell them it's your fault. We're just not equipped to, help your child. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think it's Melody Schumann anymore. I think it's, I think she was married, and it's different. I forget what it is.
Yeah, but I just don't remember what it is. So
right, yeah.
But most people know that name. So
no, but yeah,
I wanted
right.
to give her credit with that phrase, because I didn't come up with it.
Yeah, and and she's right, because I found that very often the people that we put the most time into, and the people that we flex for, like we're flexible for, and we work around their schedule, around their issues, around their mentality, they're the ones that will turn on you. And like, for example, this mom who just turned on me, like, you would think, like, how could she hate me that much that within 2 interactions on the phone, even if I sounded like a jerk, she may have thought to herself, well, maybe he's having a bad day, or maybe he's not really a jerk. Maybe he just talks with confidence, or, but no.
People don't think that way, though.
They
don't think that way.
Yeah, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And by the way, sometimes the first impression is made long before you ever met them. If they just see, like, we joke around with our kids. We yell in class. We're sarcastic and joking with the kids, and she took offense to that, like, they're sarcastic and they're this and that, and they belittled it. Nothing to do with that. That was her perception of what it is. The reality is quite skewed.
Right.
So, all right, listen, I'll go over a few more because we're like 12 minutes away.
All right, fire away, and we'll just make a quick comment.
All right, you want me to just read? So I'll read them. So number 6 is greet the customers as if they were the president of the United States or us or another important person, right? Someone who could remember what state they were in, so or what their job is. That's a plug at our administration. And number 7, learn and develop charisma and conversational skills. I know that sounds funny, but I remember in the TV show Friends. I don't think you've ever watched Friends, right?
I've watched it, but I didn't watch it when it was.
So Joey's an actor and he's teaching an acting class, and he starts off, and it's funny. He writes his name on the board, but he's not looking at it. The name is like all over the place, And then he turns to people and he says, first of all, the first thing you guys all have to do is become better looking. Right. So it's like, that's his simple methodology. Right. So it's pretty funny, but we definitely want to learn and develop charisma and conversational skills. And what I mean by that is you could learn public speaking skills, how to develop relationships. A great book is Raving Fans, right? Or leadership qualities. I'm reading a great book, by the way, Joanne. I don't know if you read it. It's called Can't Hurt Me. It was recommended by Gus Lopez. And Kenny Bigby's mentioned in the book. It's a Navy SEAL that trained with Kenny Bigby. And he mentions Kenny in the book and how they went through BUD/S training. And it was kind of cool. I'm like, I know that guy. He's in this book. So yeah, it was all about, learning and developing charisma and conversational skills. Number 8, give the customer something, create a customer service experience, figure out what they like and what you could give. Like even an old t-shirt, not old used, but something that's not selling. You get a brand new parent, it's a dead inventory, give it to them. You have no idea how well that goes over. I bought 50 books from Solomon Brenner called Black Belt Parenting, and I give them to all the parents as a gift.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have, there's a girl that my son went to school with, and she makes these bracelets and stuff. So I bought, I don't know how many I bought, but I bought some off of her, and they're girl bracelets. And then every once in a while, there'll be a girl sibling, in the lobby, and I'll say, hey, do you like bracelets? And oh yeah, I say, oh, hey, I've got a few to pick from. I'd like to give you one.
Yeah,
just a present for no reason at all.
Yeah.
Those, beautiful. Just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to, I have this little plush toy. I think I've shown him. This is one of them, but he's not on the market, but I did an eagle, right? I give them out. So I have these eagles. I have hundreds of them in stock. When I bought them, I had to buy like 3,000 to get the deal I wanted. But I try to sell them, and not a lot of people would buy them. So now I have them. When I get a brand new kid through the door, even if they don't sign up, I'm like, I want to give you a little gift to bring home. And these little kids will show back up to the next class with their little eagle, and they'll put them on the shelf or put them in the corner, and they'll do their class. So it's amazing at how that little offer of giving something means so much, right? And that's another thing. So the next one is give the customer, the next one is always look your best and be all that you can be. I think that this is underrated. Like Tiger Schulman is great at that. They've been known to fire people for getting fat if they were scruffy. Like they wanted their brand to be a certain way, buff, good looking, tight hair, in shape, that kind of mentality, because that was their brand, right? So you want to make sure at minimum your instructors don't look like they've been sleeping in the backyard before they came out.
Your uniform is pressed and ready to go.
Yeah, or at least a minimum clean and looks good, so you got to make sure, because perception is reality, right?
Absolutely.
And then, make sure your business always looks like the Taj Mahal. And I wrote down, this is written way before Trump was president. So I wrote, and the Trump Taj Mahal, which he no longer has and he sold years ago. But like, what you want to make sure when people walk in, they see, like I have people that walk in and they do this, they go, they're smelling the place, right? And I'm worried, like, what are they smelling? And they go, oh my God, this place smells like you just sanitized it 2 seconds ago. I'm going like, we are sticklers for cleaning and sanitizing. We spray the table. Every time we get in, that's what we do for a half an hour. Us, and we don't just do it for the perception. We do it because that's part of our process, right? Also, it says, develop yourself to be amazing over the telephone, learning how to be conversational, learning how to talk to people. Always act like a gentleman or a woman, treat others how you would like to be treated. That's another one. Learn each and everyone's names.
I was going to say, my son did a course in college this past time, and we were talking about the golden rule, right? Treat others how you want to be treated.
Right.
And he said to me, he goes, well, we learned that we should treat others how they want to be treated.
That's a good one.
At first I was, I don't want to say offended, but at first I was like, hey, wait, you can't supersede the golden rule,
Right.
But after like sitting back and like marinating on it, I started thinking about that. Yeah, I need to meet people where they're at, not treat them how I want to be treated, but treat them how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good thought. I really did.
Well, I had a mom maybe about 4 weeks ago. I wasn't in. She came in to buy gear. Ryan was closing out class. His helpers were starting a new class. And then one of the kid's parents didn't show up to pick the kid up. So he was walking outside to see if the car was there, and the mom felt neglected. The mom happens to manage a store. So she reamed me out. I mean, like, she really kind of went off on me. And then I was like, please let me help you in any way, shape, or form. And anyway, long story short, we went back and forth. He did this, he did that. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. What can I do to help? We're wrong. We'll fix it. Blah, blah, blah. And she just was not letting up. She was like ripping into me. And I felt like I kept being nice, and she kept getting deeper and meaner. But anyway, long story short, we ended on a good note. She wanted to buy the gear, so she didn't because he was busy. So I said, I'll handle it for you. And then a week later, she finally got back to me and said, I'd like to get that gear. Can you give me the special price that you're doing? I said, absolutely. And I'd like to actually give you 20% off. And she's like, no, I don't deserve that. I just want the 10% off that I tried to get it at that time. And now it seems like she's a raving fan. I see her, she waves, she's happy, she brings her kid in. So I hope that I've overcome her objections and her negativity by a customer service. I want to call it a redo or I don't know. I don't even have a term for it, but to fix it, a fixed customer service negative experience, right?
Yep.
Okay, you said learn to listen, I think, before. You got to learn to listen. That's another one on the list. Exceed all customers' expectations. Take care of all customer issues and complaints quickly, and make sure that you follow up on them. Like on this mom, I did follow up again, and I said, is everything still okay? Are we doing good? She said, yeah, everything is fine. So I think that now I got a raving fan, maybe.
Yeah, so I learned this from Grandmaster Hafner. Is she says you apologize, right? Solve the problem, apologize. Then you write a little note, again apologizing.
Right.
And then next time you see them, or a couple of weeks later, you kind of do the follow-up, like what you were talking about, and say, hey, look, I'm really sorry about that. I want to make sure that we're still, everything is still okay, yada, yada, yada. He said, you do those 3 times, he said, everything will be golden.
That's awesome. And by the way, you speak about Grandmaster Hafner quite often. We should try to reach out to him and get him on the show. He sounds like an amazing individual.
We'll see if I'll ask him. I doubt he'll do it though.
Yeah. Okay. I did have someone the other day that I asked, and I said, would you like to be on our podcast? And they said, no. I'm like, okay. But anyway, so here's the last ones real quick. So I said, exceed all customer expectations, take care of all customer issues, complaints, or problems quickly. Always keep in touch with your clients. Always. Like if you are reaching out and you think that you're reaching out to everyone, I bet you there's a ton of people that you haven't spoken to. So that's why I always, with Spark, I go into my new student maximizer and I always communicate up to 7 months. I'll say, well, how are classes going, Dwayne? Are you enjoying yourself? Do you have any questions? And I have all these pre-made texts. So all I have to do is call customer follow-up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I pushed 1, and it takes me seconds, but it's a very personal experience and people will respond. The next one is develop a customer service protocol. Like, what are the steps you do when people are upset? Step 1, we do like you said, send them a note. Number 2, send them a follow-up note. Number 3, see them in person and follow up. Like, you should have some sort of protocol or rule that you follow every single time. And the other one is interesting. You and I have had a call on this, was get rid of the bad apples. Out with the old, in with the new, because those bad apples can poison so many good apples, right? And we have to be cognizant of knowing, like, the complainers, the issue starters, the troublemakers, right? And get rid of them, because they're doing nothing but, I don't know why they're there. and they're complaining about what we do while they're showing up every day. I had a guy recently that I got rid of. I wouldn't renew. He wanted me to redo my contract for him. And I said, it looks like it's time to move on. And he wrote this other thing on Facebook about it. And, he didn't like my contract, so he posted it online. And but anyway, long story short, all the people that know him knew that he was trouble. Like that, all the parents said to me, we couldn't stand being around him, that kind of thing. And then always develop a common bond with each and every client. Like, what is it that they did that you did? People don't get that. Like, I'm kind of that way with everything where someone talks about a topic. I can tell you a story about some experience that I've had. Everyone has that in their lives. They just have not taken the time to log those stories or want to bring them up. Like, oh, I was bullied as a kid too, or I, went on a school trip and, everything, you have common ground with everybody. You just got to find it and develop it. And that's my 20 tips. That's
perfect. And see, we got them all in.
Yeah, we certainly did. And by the way, it was great chatting with you about it because it's a reminder to me of a lot of things that I could be doing better.
Well, haven't we forgotten more than we've implemented?
Yes.
I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. We've forgotten more than we've implemented. The other thing I was going to bring up is that we kind of touched on, but we didn't outwardly say, is we need to be available to talk to somebody either on the phone or in person, and not just through digital means.
Right. And
that. I have a lady that I'll be doing a call with this afternoon. Her daughter's a little overwhelmed and she wants to take a break, but yet she's on the black belt testing process right now. And it's so that can't be done over text.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's doesn't have the time to meet me in person, we need to do it over the phone. So we need to make sure that I know that COVID did some really good things for us because it got people on our apps. It got them looking at emails more. It got them looking at text messages more and responding in those ways. But I think that the old face-to-face and the old telephone is still applicable. And then sometimes it is more important than we may realize. So I know we've gotten comfortable. We got to be careful with that.
And through text messaging, I'm able to set balls in motion so that when we meet in person, a lot of the barriers have been broken down. I'm like, hey, Dwayne, I'm the guy who's been texting you for the last 4 days. So good to meet you in person. And I've already said that I can't wait to meet you tomorrow or whatever the case may be. So, and then when we meet, we've already done all of that stuff because we already almost know each other, know what the client wants, what they're looking for, and then we could start our relationship in person. So it's awesome. Well, Dwayne, thanks. I know we're out of time and we ran a minute over, so thank you very much for being here as well. And I think we have an outro that we play, and
we're all good. Yep, I'm going to play it now.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you soon. Great talking to you and seeing you, and thank you to all the listeners that watch and follow us.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk Podcast. This would not be possible if it weren't for the support of our amazing sponsors. Please check out EliteInsights.com for all your website needs. LeadHunterMedia.com, your online digital marketer and content provider. Academy Kings BJJ Growth Consulting and Management at GrowMyAcademy.com. SparkMembership.com, the best darn software for school owner manager on the planet. GetKarateStudents.com, a martial arts growth consulting company for all your school systems. We will see you next time.